Hey App Growth community, welcome back to the App Growth Show, where we host mobile experts to unlock valuable and actionable insights on how you can grow your app. No matter where you are in your app growth journey, we're here to help you reach your mobile growth goals. Let's dive into today's episode. Today we are so excited to be joined by Peter Gardus, the Vice President of Marketing at UXCam. UXCam is a cloud-based user experience solution that helps businesses optimize app functionality by recording and analyzing every user micro-interaction. By going deeper than vanity metrics like page views, app developers get access to insights they need to create an optimal user-centric app. Learn about UXCam's capabilities, important KPIs to track, and why having a deeper understanding of your user behavior data will help you develop the successful product faster and ultimately get to revenue quicker.
Hello, this is Jennifer Sansone from App Growth Network, and thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of our show. Today, we're really happy to have Peter from UXCam joining us today. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Why don't we start off simple? Why don't you tell us about yourself and also tell us a bit about UXCam?
Oh yeah, I would love to. Thank you. Yeah, so a bit about myself. Yeah, my name is Peter Gardus. I'm the head of marketing here at UXCam. My background is originally in finance and data analytics. I worked at IBM for 5 years in various data analytics roles, but the last 7 years I've been in different marketing roles, mostly focused on growth and analytics. And yeah, I'm currently living in Berlin and working for UXCam from Berlin in our Berlin EMEA headquarter office, basically.
So tell us about UXCam. What are you guys all about? How do you help with app growth?
Oh yeah, UXCam. Where should I start? So let's start with the basics. So the company's roots basically go back to 2014. We started off as a mobile app session replay tool. So our current CEO and one of our founders, way back then worked in London as a UX researcher in a lab, and he felt that things were still done in a pretty manual way when it came to gathering user behavior data, well, in the mobile app space, but of course in general as well. And he got inspired, by his experiences in this field, to create something new to help app experts to gather, user behavior data and UX data from users in a more easier way. And that's how UXCam was basically born. And yeah, since then we have come quite a long way. So today we are not just a session replay tool anymore, but we are a mobile app analytics insights hub, basically. So we combine traditional analytics methods that rely on aggregate data with deeper user behavior insights features like session replay and heat maps. And this way we really help our clients to grow their mobile apps, to build user-centric products, which has always been one of our key missions, of course, but above all, to achieve their business objectives with their app. And when it comes to, I mentioned both traditional analytics and so to speak is more qualitative, or some people refer to this as next gen, right? That you kind of have the ability to see through your user's lens. So on the quantitative front, what you can imagine here in UXCam, you will find the usual metrics you would have in a tool like Firebase, for instance. So you can analyze your sessions, you can analyze your users, you can track custom conversion events and send them, to UXCam the same way you would do in a tool like Firebase, for instance. But on top of that, there's a lot of extra cool stuff that you can do in UXCam. And I would say that this starts with the auto capture of certain user signals. And to give you an example, We are automatically capturing frustration signals like rage taps, which really allow our customers to see in real time when users are getting frustrated. So a rage tap is basically, when I think you have also experienced this, when you have a mobile app, it's not working the way it's supposed to, you get frustrated, and then you suddenly start tapping on the screen in a not
Hey, I've never done that.
And like this is something that our platform automatically captures and provides as a data point. But apart from this, there's several other things. So we also capture crashes, which is already a bit more of a serious problem if it's happening in your app. And of course, ideally, every app company wants to minimize this and bring it down to zero. But also bugs. So bugs, they can be, they can come from different sources. They can have different forms. But an example is, for instance, when you have UI freezes, when the user interface is frozen in the app. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a crash. It can be frozen only for a couple of seconds, but it's also very important to keep track of this and stay on top of this, that they don't happen. So this is also among with these other signals being auto captured in UXCam and provided to our clients in the form of aggregate reports. So you can create reports around them, segment your users, see what kind of users are experiencing this, on what device types it is happening on, which app version that you're running, which OS version. So everything that you basically track normally in your mobile app. And then on top of this, or the way we like to say it, that we offer an integrated user behavior analytics suite. So this is, what does this mean, right? So we do have session replay, as I mentioned before, which was how we started off. So so when you're in UXCam, you can easily zoom in on different user segments and then replay sessions, watch how users were interacting with your app, and see how they use it, how they use the interface, and of course heat maps as well, where it's a bit more of an aggregate data feature, but it's also very, very widely used by our customers. And the cool thing is that we're a mobile first tool, so of course our heat maps focus on the different taps that users can make, the different interactions like swipes, for instance. So you can see if they're swiping right, left, up, or down. You can also easily filter the heat map, see where they tap first, which can also be very important, right? Are they really behaving with the tool the way they want? And yeah, this is basically, how UXCam works. So we are really trying to bring the best of both worlds to our clients. So traditional, what we call traditional analytics. So like 5-6 years ago, you're probably just looking at aggregate data. You would look at a report or just a funnel. You see that your metrics are changing, but if you're only doing this, you don't really understand why they are changing, right? So one of the most important things for us is to enable our users, our clients, to be able to understand the why, behind a lot of these movements in metrics and KPIs. Because if you use a simple example, you could say that having a tool like Google Analytics or Firebase is like having binoculars, right? You're looking at a group of people, you see from the distance what they are doing, but you're not sure, right? The only way for you to know what the complete picture is if you can listen, you can hear them, you can learn more about them. And this is, what makes UXCam cool, is that we bring in all these qualitative and deeper user behavior insights that you can gain from our platform. So you can pretty much get, a complete picture about what is happening in your mobile app.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, the whole idea of heat maps and everything with an app. I'm kind of intrigued by that. So can you maybe give us an example of, an action like a heat map or something, and what that might signal to your client as to the types of fixes to make? Like, what is it showing me?
Yeah, absolutely. So a heat map is something that you can have for technically any screen within your mobile app. So it really, depends on, so for instance, in a lot of scenarios, our clients are using this to see, let's say you're trying to optimize, your registration conversion rates, right? So a lot of app companies, spend a great deal, a lot of money on advertising. So it's really important, of course, that you do capture that registration in your app, and it's easy, and users, complete the action you would want them to. And with a heat map, for instance, you can, in UXCam, a typical use case, you can look at people, for instance, who did not finish a conversion sign-up flow, and then you can dive into the heat map to see how they were interacting with it. So I would say heat map, alone is not necessarily enough, but the typical use case is we also have customer journeys and user flows within UXCam, and normally, to give you, an example of that front, that's how normally you start. So, you look at where users are dropping off, you identify, where you see a bottleneck, what screen could be a problem. And then you can jump to, let's say you have a screen for creating your password when you're signing up, right? And then you identify that a lot of people are dropping off there. Then, first heat map can give you some high level information, like what were they doing here? Were they tapping on the right things? Or maybe, your button placements in the whole flow are confusing. So you can find, confusion points and bottlenecks. And then normally the flow is that you can take this to an even at more advanced level. And then once you've found some insights, let's say, again, to give you an example, that people's first tap regularly in a screen is happening with an item, with an element in your app that's actually not interactive. You can find this out, that this is a problem, and then you can filter further, look at this group of users who got frustrated there or seem to be confused there, and then you can go and get into session replays, right? You've created an audience segment, and then you can start looking at actually the full session and what was happening with that user.
That's really interesting, because that seems to maybe take a lot of the guesswork out of it. Like, they're dropping off, but it, like you said, it could be something as simple as, the button was in the wrong place and they're, hitting. So that's interesting that a heat map would show you that they're pushing on a part of the screen that, maybe isn't intuitive, or, so yeah, that's really interesting. And we kind of touched a little bit on, KPIs and about, traditional analytics, and how we talk a lot about KPIs, of course, as an app marketing agency. From your point of view, what are the most important KPIs that app marketers should be looking at?
Ooh, yeah, that's that's a very, very big question. I mean, normally, the best, it's not a nice answer to say that it depends, right? But it does depend on a few things. So firstly, of course, depends on what your objective is, what your company's objective is, and also the marketing teams or the product teams. And the other thing that is important, or what we see, is what stage your business is at, right? So what we see normally is that the two main groups, just to generalize a little bit. So earlier stage and growth stage app companies are usually more focused on building up their user base, right? And their revenue engine. And because of this, conversion related metrics or KPIs are much more important from them. So, in this case, what we really see is like app downloads, for instance, being a really important metric in KPI. And this is important both for product and marketing teams, right? Because you're trying to build up a user base, especially in case of user acquisition. Your main goal is to get these people to download your app. Then we're also looking at visits and unique users, of course. In general, that is a metric that is tracked by almost any team. The number of new user signups, and of course transactions and orders, which really pretty much depends on what kind of app you are. Are you an e-commerce app, or are you a financial services app, if you're talking about transactions? And having talked about just mentioned financial services apps, we do work with quite a lot of them as well at UXCam. And of course, they have their own industry specific metrics as well, where like KYC is very important, right? Because in any financial services company, you need to get through the KYC, so the know your customer point. This often also includes personal verification these days, right? You don't need to go personally to the bank anymore. Timing metrics, for instance, in this case are also very important. So like the time to KYC. So normally, they would not just be looking at the signups and the new registrations, but the KYC completions as well. How long does it take them? How does this differ across different acquisition channels? And of course, also the number of errors that they get, because with financial transactions, whether it's an investment app or a banking app, tracking issues and bugs is really important for them, right? Because any leading app, a banking app provider or any kind of financial app's goal is to minimize these. So it's also taking a very important role that they track the amount of unsuccessful transactions or transactions that have returned an error.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely it's identifying where it's happening and finding a solution, but then comes the solution part, right? So what is the right solution? And so another thing we talk a lot about is the A/B testing, right? If you don't know, you try. You obviously make informed decisions. But the whole A/B testing process, what from your perspective, what is the role of A/B testing, and how should one do it correctly so you're not spinning your wheels or wasting valuable time and resources?
Yes, when it comes to A/B testing, of course, one thing is also, that I would mention is what we have seen is that the line between product and marketing teams have also become a little bit more blurry, and we see both of these teams, doing a lot of experiments and owning different experiments when they run them. And one thing, just to mention quickly is that, of course, UXCam is not an A/B testing tool. So we are not used for running the A/B tests, but we are used to potentially validate an A/B test or get deeper insights about what happened with an A/B test. And normally the main challenge that we see around experimentation is confidence. So basically, for teams to have the confidence to be able to say that this experiment went well, or we are confident in our conclusion, right, in that experiment. So to give you an example, or like, let's go a bit more specific and look at a scenario. To give you an example of an experiment, we've seen this with one of our clients. Very often experiments are happening around the onboarding flow as well. And then you're trying to find ways to improve your conversions, right? So conversion rate optimization, very often the driver behind experimentation. And to give you, this example, what we're looking at here is we had a company who had a hypothesis that they've already formed, where they believe that by reducing, the number of screens that you have in the onboarding registration flow from 5 to 3, we can increase the conversion rates by 20%. Now, I think in this case, it's not that important how they got to that hypothesis, but they had a hypothesis. And then what they have done is that they went forward, they rolled out the A/B test with A version. They kept the original five screens in the app, and the B version was going for 3 screens, right? And they ran it. Of course, in a lot of A/B tests, everyone is really trying to achieve statistical significance. In this case, we're looking at a higher volume app, so they did achieve that. And when they had the results, right, they got the results in the end. They looked at it, and what they saw was that the B version, which was reducing the number of screens and essentially was trying to make it easier for the user, was actually providing lower conversion rates, right? And you also did achieve statistical significance. So what you would normally do if you just relied on aggregate metrics and aggregate data is you would conclude that, okay, this hypothesis was wrong. It looks like users prefer the 5 steps, and let's archive this project, move on to the next one. But if you have a tool like UXCam, and let's assume that you do, and you take a look, what you can find is, in this example, the company found that most of the drop-offs were happening at the password creation step. right? So they looked at that, okay, we see a lot of people are dropping off, but we are not exactly sure why. And then they've taken, again, a step forward. They created an audience from these people who were on the B version, who were dropping off there, and they, looked into it a little bit more. And what they found was that in the B version, when they were creating the password, there's a little message that comes up and tells you that you're supposed to use special characters, and that was not showing up, right? They were not seeing, they were getting frustrated. I don't know, no one told me I have to use special characters, right? So you try your usual password from somewhere else, doesn't work, bam, you just lost a user right there, right? In a matter of a few seconds. And you would not see this by just comparing, your data or your report when you look at A and B. And then the other thing that they also found is that some users were using dark mode, right? So a lot of people who use dark mode in their mobile app browser, or even in your desktop browser in Chrome, or whatever browser you're using, you're often with the dark mode. And the team who set up the B version also forgot to add this optimization for the dark modes on that screen, right? And then some of these people did not even see the field headers. So like, you're putting the password above putting your email. So you're not even sure like which field is which. You get confused, right? That's when your rage tab suddenly starts going over the roof. And like in this case, they found out that there were issues with the setup. And this can often happen especially when you're a bigger company, when you're running multiple experiments at the same time. People who are setting this up also on the engineering side, unfortunately, it can happen. Like the conclusion of the story is that I don't think after having access to these, more deeper behavioral insights, you would not conclude, right, that the B version did not work. I don't think so. Like your main conclusion is that you probably have to run the test again. And let's say you run it again, and then you find that the simplified version does work much better. You could be making a lot of extra dollars, right, in the future. And if you ignore this, then it's probably quite a big loss over a longer period of time.
That is really interesting, because you're right. On a surface level, it's just, okay, we were wrong, and it's not that, but that wasn't the issue at all. It was something much deeper that you wouldn't know just from looking at the numbers. So that's fascinating. That's a really interesting example that you gave us, and how you can see that sometimes the A/B test does not tell the whole story if you're not really digging into, again, those minute details. So what's coming next for UXCam?
Oh yes, there's a lot of cool things that are coming, and I would say that one of our main goals, or our main goal, is really to build, so to say, an insights hub where we allow different members of a mobile team, whether it's product managers, marketers, engineers, to easily collaborate, and also to empower everyone on the mobile team, with the right insights, without the need of previous experience with data and analytics, right? Because we've done, of course, we've had a lot of conversations with our customers, we've done a lot of research, and normally, especially in bigger companies, what you see is every data request, so to speak, goes through the usual process. You create a card in Jira or whatever you use, you wait for the data team to come back to you and create a dashboard in a BI tool like Tableau or Data Studio or anything, whatever your organization is using. And to tie this in with our previous examples, right? When you are working in a sprint environment, in an agile environment, you need to be quick. You need insights for decision making very quickly. You often don't have the time to wait 1 or 2 weeks, because maybe you get your dashboard in 2 weeks' time, and then your question is already obsolete, right? Your product team or squad is moving on. So like what we are really building towards is to really enable everyone on the mobile team, and allow them to really easily, when I say collaborate, I mean easily tag each other on sessions, share reports very easily, build dashboards easily. So to give you an example of I can't reveal too much, right, about new features, but there's one really exciting new feature that we're all very excited about that's coming, which is about building dashboards. So it's a dashboard feature which is going to allow our users and our clients to build chart widgets and entire dashboards in the drag and drop interface. And it's really optimized and tailored so that it's like really easy to put these dashboards together, easy to change. So to speak, allowing the mobile team members, especially squad leaders, to adapt these for every sprint super easily, discard the ones that you don't need anymore without any support or instrumentation from a data person or an engineer, basically.
Wow, that's really great, because if there's one thing, at least if you talk to someone like me, data can be scary. It can be intimidating to a lot of people who don't have that expert background or knowledge. So to make it so accessible, it seems like that would be extremely valuable to marketing teams to be able to, like you said, move quickly and make decisions. So yeah, that sounds really exciting. I want to thank you so much for all of this great information you've given us. But kind of as we're wrapping things up, as we mentioned, a lot of our listeners are appreneurs, or they're, just starting on their app journey. You have a lot of experience in this space. So if you had to give some parting words of advice for someone, looking to take their app to the next level, what would be some of your key pieces of advice of how to offer that user experience that's really gonna take their app there?
Yeah, I would say, the first thing is, I would say the first very important thing I would give as an advice is to make sure that there's no walls that build up in your team between departments, right? As someone living in Berlin, which has a history of walls, right? To use the Berlin Wall, for instance, was built up overnight, and suddenly the next day barely noticed, and you couldn't go from one part of the city to the other. And the same way silos can be created in an organization or in a business overnight. So I think it's very important to not allow that to happen, and to really build up teams that are optimizing for KPIs that are important for everyone. So basically, what we've seen over the past years is very often when these silos develop, you see people optimizing for their own little metrics and KPIs. So you have marketing island, and then you have product island. And then you ask these people, and you see a lot of them not knowing how what their team is, the metric that their team is optimizing for impacts the core business KPI, right? Or the North Star that the company wants to go for. So I think it's very important to avoid that, to set metrics for the team that can be shared, and that way really to kind of foster this collaboration between the team to ensure that they're all headed the same direction. And the second one I would say is empowering everybody with insights, right? Because data does not equal insights, right? So today we see that a lot of mobile teams, they just have a lot of tools and too many tools at the same time. Sometimes the data is scattered across a lot of places. So we believe at UXCam, and I also believe that it's very important that you have a platform or a tool where you can easily get access to data and insights across the different teams, and very easily share the key insights as well, right? Without creating too much friction. So having these advanced collaboration features and having a tool that allows that, I think is really important. And lastly, thirdly, I think having focusing on building a user-centric app, I think is in 2022, I think is really the most important. And there are different ways of doing that, of course, but like one thing that I can mention is again incorporating user-centric metrics and KPIs into your core metrics that you're optimizing for is really, really important.
Peter, thank you. That's great, some great advice. And again, we appreciate your time to speak to us. And share your expertise with us. So thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. This was really fun, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
I'm so glad. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully, for a follow-up session.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to return.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be in touch maybe with the next generation of UXCam, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Looking forward.
Bye, Peter.
Bye, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the App Growth Show. We hope you were able to take away some actionable insights on how having access to user data at this level can help you develop a user-centric product and make a positive impact on your growth journey. If you found today's episode to be helpful, please visit appgrowthnetwork.com and book your free call with us today to supercharge your mobile growth. See you in the next episode. Bye for now.